Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to continue building the models from the Band of Brothers starter set for bolt action. If you couldn't tell from the title and picture on screen, I'm going to build the SDKFZ 251/10 Halftrack with PaK 36 anti-tank gun. Obviously, coming in the Band of Brothers box set, I don't have the box for this specific model. That's why I'm only showing a picture of the box. You can of course buy this model separately apart from the Band of Brothers box set. There will be a link to the video about the entire Band of Brothers box set in the description. This is a platoon leader's half-track. Apparently the platoon leader got the anti-tank gun to protect the rest of the half-tracks in the platoon. Let's have a look at what comes in the box, or what I assume would come in the box if this wasn't part of the starter set. If anyone knows of any differences between this and the actual individual model box, let me know in the comments below. We get this instruction leaflet. There isn't really any labelling, but it's clear and easy enough to understand. The question marks denote alternate parts you must choose between, or optional parts that you can leave off. Simple enough. There are 3 sprues for this kit. The 2 larger ones, I am assuming, correctly I think, are the same as for the regular SDKFZ 251 kit. The small sprue on the right has the PaK 36 gun and loader figure. The first sprue here has the tracks. These are obviously moulded as a single piece and they look quite nice. There's also the 2 lower components of the hull, and a handful of detail parts and stowage. None of the parts are missing and they're all very neatly moulded with very few mould lines. For the most part, the same can be said about the second sprue here. The parts for the half-track itself are all very neat. I do have one minor complaint. The parts on these sprues are not labelled, which I guess does fit with the instructions not being labelled either. The kit is simple enough that it isn't a major issue, but it can be helpful when the parts have a number or some kind of label that you can reference while assembling the model. The parts are nice though. The passenger figures are reasonable looking, though they are a little bit soft in my opinion. I think this is fine because if you do use them, they will mostly be hidden inside the half-track anyway. I probably won't use them myself, but I am considering trying to find a 28mm scale outhouse and using one of these figures inside of it. Probably this one here, who seems to be patting the seat beside him saying, "Come on in, there's room for 2. I am easily amused. The anti-tank gun sprue has a loader figure. In my opinion, he looks a little bit better than the passenger figures. He's neat enough and the mould line is fairly inoffensive. He has a shell in his hands, ready to be loaded into the gun. The gun itself has some tiny little detail parts, the sight and elevation and depression controls. These look very fiddly, but it's nice to have them as separate parts. There is of course a gun shield to protect the gun crew, and the seat parts have a bunch of ammo cases moulded into them, or at least I've assumed that they're ammo cases. There is of course a decal sheet. This has a bunch of numbers, a reasonable selection of crosses, and some number plates. Let's build it. I start by attaching the tracks to the hull bottom. This is of course after removing the mould lines. There are holes in the back of the track part, but no corresponding pins on the hull. The raised bars, for lack of a better word for them, on both the track and hull parts are what guides the positioning of this. The parts on the hull should sit between the 2 bars on the tracks. There shouldn't be any movement back and forth at all. This is very easily done. Next comes the axle suspension-y part for the front wheels. I didn't spend much time removing the mould lines from this. It will barely be visible once the model is complete. This part does have quite a bit of play in it, so it can be a little bit fiddly to get it positioned nice and straight, but it can be done. I guess maybe one of the reasons there's so much play in this is so that you can kind of simulate turned wheels, or maybe the suspension going over a rock or something. I don't know. I then attach the towing hook. There's nothing difficult about this. The part is shaped so that it fits the vehicle correctly like so. The little nub should be on the upper side of the hook. Then I attach the wheels, of course after removing the mould lines. These don't have any keying and they are a little bit loose fitting, which I think is a better way to simulate steering than turning the axle itself. There is no keying because there is no flat spot on the wheels to simulate weight like some other kits have, so it doesn't matter how you put the wheel on. I try to get them on as straight and neat as possible. That's the lower hull completed. Now for the middle hull, I guess? First, I glue in the driver and, I guess, co-driver seats. There's a little bit of play in these parts. I'm not sure if the seats moved back and forth on the real thing, but I doubt anyone is going to care or notice if they aren't in exactly the same position as each other. There's a little bit of detail on the back of the backrests, which I assume is to simulate springs. A very nice subtle little touch. I then install the passenger seats. Obviously I'm building the PaK 36 version, so I'm using the parts that came on the gun sprue because they have the ammo boxes. We don't want our PaK 36 to go without ammo. The ammo boxes go towards the rear, and the edge of the seats that curves upwards should be towards the centre of the vehicle. If you wanted to build this as the regular troop carrying version, you would use this seat with no ammo boxes. I don't think it's quite accurate to model it with one of each, but I suppose you could if you wanted to. I used both ammo seats because I would hate to run out of ammo. Then the backrests for the seats can go in. I guess the ammo needs backrests as well. I'm not sure if they removed that on the real version or what. I had to apply a little pressure to the left one of these to properly get it into place, because it wasn't quite straight. It looks very seaty in there now. Time to glue this to the lower hull assembly. This is very simple. There's not really any keying, but you can tell where it should go, and if you slide the front of the crew compartment hard up against the rear of the mudguard, it'll be perfectly in place. I think this went together really well. The whole top can then be glued on. This is also quite easy. Again, there's no keying, but sliding the part back as far as it will go works. I had to apply a little bit of pressure at the front and rear to minimize gaps there, but it went on with no issue. It is now time for external details. First, I add the storage boxes to the side of the hull. I don't know if these have a special name or what. Unsurprisingly, these go in easily. There's a bit of a gap there, but I don't think it's too bad. Next, something has to be done about the front of the Halftrack, or nothing. You can leave this space just how it is, but that's a bit less interesting. There's a set of tools and cable that you can attach here, or a spare tyre. I've chosen the spare tyre. There's nothing to guide the positioning here, so I just kind of guess at the correct placement, and it looks fine to me. Of course, be sure to glue it on in such a way that the bar the wheel is mounted to is horizontal. I then install the no-tech light. This goes into place easily enough, though tweezers might have made this easier. There is also another headlamp you could use instead of this if you prefer. I then installed the antenna here. Don't do this. I realized that this is not actually the mounting point for the antenna, it's a vision slot. In fairness, the instructions did seem to indicate that the antenna should go here, so that's where it went. I wasn't paying enough attention, so I'm partly to blame too. It would have been easier to install had I not tried to put it in the vision slot too. I am a numpty. Moving along, I add some stowage. I take this roll or tent or tarp or whatever it is, and I glue it onto the right side of the hull towards the rear like so. You could really put it any way you want. I just thought it would look good here. Next, a pair of jerry cans on the left. There are 4 jerry cans in this kit. 2 have a frame like these ones, and the other 2 don't. I decided to only attach 2 so I could have them be identical, and I thought the frames were more interesting. So that's what I used. And this is what the Halftrack looks like. If you want to use this model without the PaK 36 anti-tank gun, this is as far as you need to go. Though in the absence of the anti-tank gun, you might want to install the machine guns in the front and maybe the rear. I do want the anti-tank gun though, so let's keep going. I start by gluing this control handle into place here. I've assumed this is the traverse control. I have a 50-50 chance of being right. This is actually pretty fiddly, but I think I'm doing this right. The instructions aren't exactly super clear here. Take your time and gently use a knife or other prodding device to help maneuver the part into place. Next comes the other control handle and gun sight. I'm glad these are all in one part. It would be just that little bit more tricky to attach them if they were 2 individual parts. I actually partially broke the bar that holds the sight when trying to remove it from the sprue. It didn't completely break, so I was able to salvage it pretty easily. Just be careful with that part. And this is what the completed gun looks like. Unless I've done it wrong. But even if I have, it looks fine to me. Now to give it a gun shield. This isn't hard. Add glue to it and then slide the gun in through the opening. Make sure the gun sight is aiming out of the hole intended for it, and that the shield is relatively straight with the gun, and that's it. The gun is done. Next, the loader can be assembled. This is very easy. Are you noticing a trend here? Simply glue the arm set onto the torso. It's kind of keyed so that the arms only really go on one way. A little bit of filling around the shoulders might be needed. I've drilled a hole into his foot to make painting him easier. I will of course be painting him separately to the vehicle, so he won't be glued in at the moment. I put less effort into removing the mold lines on his lower areas than I did around the head and helmet. His legs will barely be visible, and I wanted to save valuable seconds. Okay, so let's compare this to the Rubicon SDKFZ 251. The Rubicon model is the darker of the two. If we exclude the PaK 36 gun, I think it's a fair comparison. I believe Rubicon do make a version with the anti-tank gun too, but I don't have it. As you can see, they are obviously slightly different. The Rubicon version seems to be a little more narrow and a little bit shorter. In my opinion, these differences are only really noticeable when you look at the models right up next to each other like this. The Warlord version has a single axe moulded into the front mudguard, while the Rubicon model has a pickaxe and tree chopping axe as separate parts, which I think looks better. The differences in the rear ends are pretty minor. There were some gaps in the Rubicon version, but it does have doors that you can model open, which is fun. It also comes with an optional canvas roof. From the side, they both look quite similar, unsurprisingly. The doors on the storage boxes on the Warlord model are a little more prominent looking, and the wheel rims look a little bit more raised. Again, the rear ends are pretty similar. You can see they both sit at very slightly different heights. I like the road wheels on the Rubicon version more than on Warlord's. They look a little bit more crisply detailed. This was the most sensible way I could think of to compare them side by side. The tracks on the Rubicon model look to be a little bit shorter than on the Warlord version, and you can see the front wheel has a slightly flat spot on the bottom. They really are quite similar. I don't think one is really better than the other. They're both quite reasonable representations of an SDKFZ 251. And here is our good buddy Mortimer to compare the Halftrack with your average bolt-action 28mm scale figure. Alright, so let's attach the anti-tank gun. I'm not gluing this in because I would like to paint it separately, and I think all those gun controls and such would be hard to get a brush around while the gun was on the model. Also, I'm thinking I might try to magnetize it. I drop the loader in and that's it. One 28mm scale plastic SDKFZ 251/10 platoon leader half-track with PaK 36 anti-tank gun completed. I'm quite happy with this model. It looks rather nice, and apart from the gun controls, it was quick and easy to put together. Not that I'm really complaining about those gun controls. I really like that little bit of extra detail in the gun that could very easily just have been left off. I'm not sure if Italeri produced the plastic for this kit like they do with a lot of Warlord's other plastic vehicles. The picture of the box I have would suggest that this is not the case. Either way, it's well made and should look great when it's eventually painted. I will finish building the rest of the Band of Brothers box set one day. I've been putting the German Grenadiers together and I will be buying another box of those, so eventually I will do a video on that when I do order it. I've also got a few cool ideas for the ruined cottage terrain piece. If you want to see this vehicle in action, I'll be uploading a video in which I play a solo game of bolt action. Both this model and the Rubicon Halftrack were used in it. They aren't really featured per se, but they were there. So look for that sometime soon if you're interested. So what do you think about this model? Do you have any questions, comments or suggestions? Let me know in the comments section below. If you thought this video was bad, click thumbs down. If you liked it, obviously click thumbs up. If you've not done so already, subscribe to be kept informed of when I upload a new video. Also, share my videos if you feel so inclined. If you really like the videos I make, and you would like to see them a little earlier than everyone else, please consider helping to support the channel via Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, in addition to seeing my videos a little early, you'll also get some bonus patron-only content. Also, I will be pleased. If not, that's okay. Hopefully, you enjoy my videos anyway. As always, I'll be back again soon. So until then, happy modelling and thanks for watching. Farewell.